That was one heck of a game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a close game, and we were lucky to get away with the win there, so we were happy with that, yeah.
If you come off of a court and all you're thinking about is the negative things that are going on the court, and then you go back out onto the court, the chances are it's going to be a negative reaction or response. If you can come down, calm yourself, put positive thoughts back into your head, go back out onto the court, you've got a much better chance of succeeding.
He's one of those guys that's pretty quiet, but at the right time he can get pretty vocal, and he's been a great leader so far this season.
And I think that's the same in life as well. People get caught up in the negative aspects, people that are negative towards them, and I think the more that you have a positive attitude towards life and the things that you're doing, the chance of that outcome being positive is so much better.
This podcast is set out for anyone that's ready to make change in their life. It's all about inspiration, education, inspirational stories, diving deep into the journeys of people who've got incredible entrepreneurial journey, people that are out there making stuff happen. They're inspiring people all around the world.
Okay, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the One Shot Movement podcast, where we dive deep into the stories of entrepreneurs, sports stars, really anyone that's out there making it happen. Today, we have a phenomenal guest on the show. He is a royalty in Basketball Australia. He played in multiple Olympics, 17-year career in the NBL royalty, making nearly every all-star team you can think of. I recently found out just through watching the NBL finals, he's in the top 10 three-point shooters, or the most three-pointers of all time in the NBL. He's a phenomenal basketballer. His name is Brett Maher. So welcome to the show, Brett.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Craig.
Good. I always like to invite each guest. I do a bit of an intro, but just if you can share a bit about your story. We've got an international audience. Basketball is an international sport. So unlike in the AFL, after actually more of an Australian national sport, basketball is international. And for someone that has played at 3 Olympics and certainly of my ilk in age, you would definitely know who Brett Maher is. But if you can just share your story, that'll be great.
Yeah, sure. Well, I grew up in Adelaide, South Australia, and have stayed here pretty much my whole life. At the age of 15, I got selected to go to the Australian Institute of Sport over in Canberra, where they select the best kind of young basketballers in Australia to go. And I ended up spending 3 years there and did a bit of an apprenticeship, had some great coaching and really good development for me before I went into the professional ranks, and then was lucky enough to get signed by my home team, the Adelaide 36ers, and stayed here for 18 seasons. And we did really well through the late 90s, early 2000s, winning a couple of championships there. And during that time as well, I also got selected to play in the Australian team and went to the 96, 2000, 2004 Olympics. We finished fourth at 2 of those and had some really good results. Also in 2005, was lucky enough to go over to Turkey and play some of a season over in Turkey, the second half of their season over there, which was a real eye-opener for me and was a great experience. But yeah, basketball has been very good to me, and I'm still involved now with the 36ers and try and give back as much as I can, running school camps, school clinics. And I guess as an offshoot of that, I've started up a business that sends basketball teams and sporting teams on international journeys and help them play games and have experiences overseas. And I really enjoy doing that. And I guess my main job now is I work in the fire service here in South Australia, and I guess help in the community in that way as well.
Yeah, and I will touch on, I do have a bit of an interest in your overseas trips, as I do have a couple of nieces and nephews that are now starting to come through the sort of junior ranks, and just recently traveled to America and had an experience there. So we'll ask you about that. But I want to touch, I guess, to start with, on the Olympics experience. I just had a 2-time gold medalist in sailing on the show, but being involved in basketball, which is really one of those, I guess, really popular sports in the Olympics, what was that experience like to go to an Olympic Games and just the whole Olympic experience?
Yeah, I guess from the basketball side of things, it's a huge step up. You've got 12 teams in the basketball that are the best in the world. And I guess as you go from playing domestic competition to our NBL 1, our national competition, and then into Olympics and worldwide competition, there's a remarkable big step up. And I really saw that in playing for Australia. The Olympics for me, especially the first two, I didn't get to play a real lot, but I got to experience it and dip my toes in the water. And the third one, I got to play a little bit more individually. But to see what it was like to play in the pool games, make it through to the crossovers and make it and play for medals was pretty special. And we won't forget those memories. And also, I think as any athlete going to Olympic Games, the opening and closing ceremonies are pretty cool to go and witness firsthand, and walking around the track in that opening ceremony is something that I think all athletes remember fondly. And then I guess I always compare the accommodation at each of the Olympics as well, and how well they're run with the supporters that help out. There's so many people that are involved, and I'm a bit biased, but I think Sydney was pretty good.
Yeah, well, Sydney Games, that would have been certainly a phenomenal experience for sure. But I guess coming fourth, playing for that grand final, or that qualifying for the bronze medal match must be a really interesting experience in its own right, because you're close to getting a medal position, and Australia, I believe, just got their first bronze medal at the last Olympics, but or was that World Championships? I have to get that one corrected. But what was it like being so close to being able to play in the gold medal game, but then playing off for a bronze medal and falling a little bit short?
It's kind of surreal in a way. Australia is such a small country in the scheme of things, and playing against the powers of America and Russia and teams like that, it's really tough. We had to beat some really good teams like Croatia and Greece and Italy, and teams that are paying huge money in their domestic competition, have some spectacular athletes. As I came through in those kind of late 90s, early 2000s, there weren't as many internationals playing in the NBA as there is now. The floodgates have really opened up now, but there was still quite a few guys like Tony Kukoc and Sabonis and those sort of guys that are just massive names in world basketball. To play against those teams and beat some of those players was pretty special. And I think the highlight for me growing up watching the NBA and watching like the Lakers and the Celtics was to play against the Dream Team, and I got that opportunity twice at the Olympics and also outside of the Olympics in '96 and 2004.
And the '96 team, the '92 team would become like seriously famous for all the legends of the game, Michael Jordan and so on. But do you want to share with the audience some of the big names that was in that '96 team? And I'm sure in 2004 there was big names as well. But who were some of the players you got to play against?
Yeah, that '96 team, it wasn't as good as that initial Dream Team with Jordan, Bird, Magic, and those guys, but it still had some pretty good names when you think of Shaquille O'Neal, John Stockton, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, Scottie Pippen, and that list just kept going on. It was a ridiculous team, and they beat everyone still convincingly as well by 30 plus points and dominated. And one of my good memories is going to the foul line and standing next to Shaquille O'Neal and just seeing the sheer size of him next to me at 7'1" or whatever he is, and size 23 odd shoes. He's just a man mountain. And just to see the difference in size, physicality, athleticism, they just had it over everyone in those stages. But by the time we got to 2004, a lot of the world had caught up. They still had guys by the name of LeBron James and Allen Iverson and a lot of other really good players, but we led in that game for 3.5 quarters. It was only in the last bit of the last quarter that they overran us, and they didn't win gold in the 2004 as well, and finished a little bit disappointing for them. So there's been a big change in the way the rest of the world has caught up to them.
Yeah, and just on world basketball in general, you mentioned there that there are very strong basketball nations. You did do one, you mentioned Turkey was where you did a season there. Was you ever tempted, like a long 18-year career with the Adelaide 36ers, to go and experience basketball in other strong nations for that life experience as well?
I was, and it was only fairly late in 2005. I was getting on a little bit, but I decided that it was something that I wanted to do. For me, I don't have a European passport, which helps a lot in basketball to be able to go over and play as a local. I had to go over and play as an import, which is always a lot harder for a lot of reasons. And I finished the season here in 2005 and then travelled over to Turkey and played for a team called Beşiktaş, which is based in Istanbul. And real wide eye opener. I went and watched a game before I started playing for them, and a lot of the stands were filled with riot police. The fans get a little bit crazy over there. They set off flares in the stadium. They throw stuff on the court, but the people over there were beautiful, so good to me and treated me really well. And we ended up going on to make the grand final over there, which they hadn't done in that format before. And did really well and ended up just falling short, but had an awesome experience and one that I won't forget.
And one of my memories that was quite bizarre, I actually got caught up in a rally in Istanbul many, many years ago. And there would have been, 50,000 people there, and there was all riot police and there was flares going off. And I ended up having my 6-month-old son in a pram, and we were locked in a local cafe for a few hours. And I ended up saying, I'm not going to stay here for 3 or 4 days, so let's make a run for it. So I ended up going out through the kitchen, out the back door, straight into the crowd, and it was quite a bizarre experience. So I can imagine playing basketball amongst something like that might be quite full on.
Yeah, it was interesting, and a lot of the ways they did there, I don't know if it's changed now, but I got paid monthly and in US dollars, and it was on the way to a game. We're on the road, and the team manager came up and gave me the old brown paper bag and said, you might want to look in there and just check that the money's right. And then I had quite a large sum of money just tucked in my bag for the rest of that road trip, which I was a bit nervous about. But my daughter and my wife came over and spent some time with me over there as well. And they had an unbelievable experience as well, getting to see some pretty spectacular sights in Istanbul.
So let's touch on the NBL. And NBL, I sort of felt growing up, I was a basketball fan and a budding young sort of player in development squads coming through, but never got to the height to make it anywhere good. But NBL was really thriving in the 90s, I sort of felt, and then it sort of had a bit of a lull for a period, and it's really booming. It's taken certainly Tasmania, my home state, by storm, and the stadiums are packed all the time. And how do you see the NBL, I guess, that transition and your experience from someone that's really been in the game for the best part of 3 decades?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Adelaide. The 36ers have always just had that one team for the majority of it, West Adelaide early as well. But I grew up as a massive fan, and then coming back here, it was huge in the 90s. We played at Apollo Entertainment Centre and then moved to the distinctive Holmes Dome, and it's changed names about 50 times since then. But the crowds were always really good through the 90s and early 2000s, and then as you said, there was a real drop in fan attendance and also just in popularity. Well, the league nearly fell over the year I retired in 2009. And nearly all clubs and contracts were scrapped. So it was a real dire time around then. And then a few different things happened, and Larry Kesselman was one of the biggest things that happened to the game. He came in and put a lot of money, time and effort into the game to get it to where it is now, and it's in a really healthy position at the moment. The guys are getting paid really well. The quality of the game is really good, and that's paying dividends internationally as well. Although most of our Australian team are all in the NBA now, but the strength of our teams are really good, and we get to see that when our teams go over and play against some of the NBA teams now and perform well.
You just touched on that. That was one of my questions. Like back in the 90s when NBL was strong, I think, maybe Luke Longley, Chris Anstey, I think might have played a few seasons at the time, and Andrew Gaze might have played, a few seasons, but Shane Hill might have played a few seasons. But now there's a lot of high quality players, probably post Bogut, who went number one, but there's been a number of players that have been high draft picks and perform well in the NBA. Is it that basketball in general, the standards lifted dramatically here, or you said the rest of the world is starting to catch up to the dream team? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. The standard here has got a lot better, but also America has opened its eyes to the rest of the world. They were very tunnel vision and only really wanted Americans playing in the NBA, and there were some spectacular players in Europe that didn't play in the NBA that were a lot better than some of the players playing there. And but now the pathways to get there are so wide open with kids playing in college, kids coming through the NBL. I mean, you have one good season in the NBL now, all of a sudden you're a really good chance of making a summer league team at worst, or getting on a roster or a two-way contract in the NBA. So that never used to happen through the 90s, early 2000s. Only the very, very best players that played well internationally would get a look in. But, I think it's really healthy and good to see so many young Australians in the NBA, and the future is looking really bright. A lot of people probably thought when you had your Joe Ingles and Paddy Mills looking to retire that would fall in a big hole, but we've got so many good young players like Josh Giddey coming through. It's really exciting to see where the game is going here.
And you're, just for those that may not know, some of our international guests, you've actually got your name etched into the Adelaide 36ers court. And there's a famous story you might be able to share of a player stomping on your name on the court. I'm not sure how that started or what really happened there, but if you want to just share that story with the audience of obviously over 500 games, you deserve your name on the court, but how did all that come about?
Yeah, well, I guess in my last season, the general manager at the time, Paul Bauer, who I know very well, they wanted to do something special for me. And at the time, it's done quite a bit now, but at the time when I retired, the only one that they knew of or that any of us could find with their name on the court was Red Auerbach at the Boston Celtics. And so they thought that would be a little bit different and something pretty special to do. So, I ended up whacking the signature down, and it's been on the court ever since. And it's pretty good to walk into home games and see your name there, and it gets referred to as Brett Maher Court, which is pretty cool. And I think as I said, it's happening a lot now. It's a pretty good thing and a pretty good honour to bestow on someone. And I keep telling people that was the only way they could get rid of me out of the team, to do something like that. And it's been pretty good. Julius Hodge, after I retired, was one of the players that I played with the year before, and that didn't end well between him and the club, and some of the comments as he left that I made got misinterpreted, and he didn't have good thoughts towards me. And at the end of the game, he was playing for another team in the NBL. He decided to stamp all over my name on the court, which of course incited a little bit of a reaction from the crowd, and it didn't really mean much to me as such. I knew where he was coming from, and it was a little misguided, but anyway, it is all right now. I think we're nearly back on speaking terms.
Very good. And you're back with the Adelaide 36ers involved in a help out type of capacity. Like 36ers have had a couple of lean seasons, and they've just reappointed, I think, the coach that took over halfway through the year. Do you want to share your involvement with the club now?
Yeah, I guess I kind of stand a little bit removed. I help out with the school holiday camps and run them, and also the school visits into the primary schools. I've always had a passion for development and developing young kids, and so I enjoy doing that. I was doing that with Scott Ninnis, who's a very good friend of mine, and he's now gone on to become the head coach of the 36ers. So I don't know if I'll be seeing him too much around the schools in the next year or two, but he was thrust into that position about halfway through the year, and I thought did a spectacular job of turning the team around and nearly getting them into the finals from the position they were in, which was dead last. I thought he did a great job, not only on their playing side of things, but the mental side of things was probably the biggest thing that he was able to turn around for the team.
And let's move on a little bit into your, let's call it side project, your business, your tours. So share a bit about how that come about and what do you do when you're doing the tours?
Yeah, so I actually went on a tour when I was young over to America and did a tour all down the West Coast. And I still write to one of the families that I stayed with on that trip and just had a ball. The teams go over, they play games against high school teams. And then we also organise for them to go watch NBA games, NCAA college games, go to Disneyland, do shopping, and do all the sightseeing stuff, depending on which state they go to. We tee up a whole heap of fun things for them to do there as well. And, they have a ball. We try and include for a lot of the teams some social interaction stuff where they're helping out in the community over there as well. But, we deal with club teams here, basketball clubs predominantly, and also high schools that want to go over there, normally year 10, 11, 12 students, tee up the games for them. And we had a group, for example, that went over last Christmas time and played a heap of games, and we were lucky enough to be able to tee up a game against LeBron James's Suns team in California, Sierra Canyon High School, and they had an absolute ball playing against one of the James boys.
Well, they may potentially, it'll be a bit of an outside chance now due to, I think it's Bronny had a recent health scare, but they were a potential chance to even play for the LA Lakers together. With LeBron, he'd be well into his 40s now, I would have thought. But that'd be a pretty amazing experience to see.
Yeah, he's still going strong. He's an absolute machine. When I played against him in 2004, he's just so athletic, strong, and can just bully people down. And he's dominated the league for so long now, and will go down as, if not the greatest, one of the all-time greats of the game. So we're kind of hoping that he'd be at the game and the kids would get to see him as well. But his son, it wasn't Bronny, it was actually his younger one, was playing against them, and he's a very talented basketballer as well.
At the end of each episode, I always ask every guest a series of questions. I call it the rapid fire section. They're not yes, no answers, but every guest gets the same questions. If somebody was looking to get ahead in life, is there a book or a podcast or a film or something that inspired you to achieve the level of success that you've had? What would you recommend?
Yeah, I've kind of read a fair bit of like self-improvement books, and I enjoy dabbling in different businesses and looking at different opportunities. And I think the Barefoot Investor has been pretty good as far as just giving me a couple of ideas with investments and that sort of thing. So I like that. It's actually been a project of mine to write a book, and I've finished writing it. I'm just getting some pictures drawn for that at the moment. That's actually an adventure book, but it's something I've been able to do on the side and hopefully be releasing that at the end of the year.
Very good. What about the best bit of advice that you've received? Obviously, playing basketball under a lot of high quality coaches, surely somebody out there in along your journey has just said one thing that's really resonated with you. What would that be?
Look, I think one of the best things, especially for young kids these days that think they know everything, I think one coach said to me, "You can't learn while you're talking." So if you listen, you got a much better chance of learning than if you're talking, because you're not going to pick anything up off yourself.
And I'm actually helping with basketball and football in the under-10s at the moment. And I actually had to say the other day, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should be listening twice as much as you're speaking. So listen up. So I might even use that line next time.
Yeah.
What about on the flip side, the worst bit of advice, or it's something that you just totally don't resonate with?
I normally just let that go in one ear and out the other. I don't normally retain that sort of stuff. I'm just trying to think. I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's been really bad that I've retained.
Well, that's good advice. Don't listen to bad advice. What about your 21-year-old self? You've gone on a journey. You've played sport all over the world. What is something you would have liked to have known back when you were 21, or you'd like to tell your 21-year-old self?
I don't have any regrets in my career. There's some things I would have liked to have done, and I probably would have told myself to go have a crack at the summer league in the NBA and just give it a try. It was something that I didn't do that I kind of think back now on and go, oh, I kind of wish I had at least gone over and given that a little bit of a crack. So I'd probably give myself that advice.
Well, on that topic, just to expand on that, back when you were playing, so it says summer league was a pathway, college basketball, like how does college basketball work to get into the NBA as a pathway?
Yeah, well, most of the guys go over. Well, a lot of guys go over for the 4-year stint, but some go over for 1 or 2 years and then declare themselves for the draft. And I think it's still the most visible for American coaches to see you play on a weekly basis. So, I think it's still the best way or pathway of getting into the NBA. But there's also some very good options now. The NBL has set up this Next Star program where there's people that look draftable that they're able to have play in the NBL instead of going to college. And that seems to be working really well as well. So there's a lot of good avenues, but I think college basketball is good. And for me, I'm a bit of a basketball purist. I actually enjoy watching the college basketball more than the NBA game. I think it's a lot more pure. The NBA is now just run and gun. Steph Curry shooting from halfway, and the rest of the guys are jumping up and touching the ring with their head. They're that athletic. It's not as I don't think it's honed in on the skills like when I was watching it in the 80s and 90s. It's more of an athletic competition, whereas college basketball I think is a bit more pure. They use the ball better and it's a bit more of a team game.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. As a basketball fan, I watch the NBL more than the NBA because I just feel the NBA is a lot more just offense, and there's not much care if you miss. If you miss, you'll get another chance very soon to score again. So I sort of have the same feeling. So this podcast is called the One Shot Movement Podcast. It's about empowering, educating people to make the most of their one shot at life. There's somebody that's driving to work at the moment or not happy in their job, or just things aren't going their way and they keep on thinking about, maybe I should take a risk on something. What would you say to that person that they could potentially resonate with to go and help them make the most of their one shot at life?
I think positive reinforcement and being in a positive state of mind. I speak to some coaches and that now and players. And if I put it in a basketball context, if you come off of a court and all you're thinking about is the negative things that are going on the court, and then you go back out onto the court, the chances are it's going to be a negative reaction or response. If you can come down, calm yourself, put positive thoughts back into your head, go back out onto the court, you've got a much better chance of succeeding. And I think that's the same in life as well. People get caught up in the negative aspects, people that are negative towards them. And I think the more that you have a positive attitude towards life and the things that you're doing, the chance of that outcome being positive is so much better.
Well said. And just always allow every guest to share any, how do they get on a sports tour? Where will they be able to buy your book? Feel free to share anything, any side hustles or anything that you want to share with the audience. And yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I guess with the tours, our company's called All World Tours. And it's predominantly basketball, but we do other sports as well, and experience tours, taking groups over to Summer League and the Final Four for the NCAA. So it's just at allworldtours.com.au. Get on and have a look, and hopefully you can jump on a tour.
And from me, I want to thank you for taking the time. This is the first interview I'm doing in my studio, but we had to postpone 3 times basically before we could do this because building was dragging on. So I want to thank you for jumping on, but also being super patient as well.
Yeah, no problems. And thanks for having me, Craig. Good to catch up with you too.